Hello everyone, this is Deepak Kumar, and this session is an extension of the previous session that we have been covering up in tutorials. This session basically extends the functionality of the same application that we were using earlier. We were developing uh, a book web application. Now, this section will cover up order processing features. In the previous section, we actually covered up a simple order processing where only one item was being captured uh, as a new order. But this section obviously will cover up more concepts in detail where you are going to implement a complete shopping cart, and this application would cover up full functionality in terms of adding multiple items to the shopping cart, removing them from the cart, uh, doing a subtotal as well as a complete invoice total of the cart. Finally, uh, capturing the order details as well as also capturing the invoice details. In another sense, we can say that capturing multiple items that can consist of that order. So for that, we would need certain table structures also. We obviously have created the order table and for capturing order details, and we have also created a order line table for capturing the order line details. So this is our order table here, which captures order number, order date, order amount, and customer ID. And then we have the order line table, which captures order number, book ID, because we are capturing sales of books, price of the book, and the units of the books that have been sold. So these two table structures will be involved in your database, and these two table would be critical in terms of capturing the data that we require for processing the order details as well as uh, invoice details, or in other terms you can call it as order line item details. So let's look at the interface that we are going to look at. Just a small recap that in the previous session we added a private section called customers. Here we had few options like manage customer account, view customer order history, and then a shopping cart link. So we will be extending uh, obviously the functionality of the shopping cart here, although I'll probably do a quick recap of other things, other interface items that we have added. So here we have already created a login, and I demonstrated those private page access features to you. So once we log in, so here the customer has logged in, and that is why now the customer will be able to access various pages. Obviously, we had the customer account here. We had the order history of the customer. We can see the order details that the customer has ordered, and now we will be looking at the shopping cart interface. So this is a shopping cart interface which basically would have present date being displayed, a customer ID of the customer who's logged in will be displayed, as you can see here. The details are also shown in a grid view just to confirm and just to make sure that we have the right details from the table. Then we have created a drop down list box. A drop down list box would contain, and this is bound to the products that you have. In this case, obviously the products are books, so it is bound to a books table, and it is picking up the books data, the title of the books from the table. A good idea would always be to pick up some tangible information, some descriptive details that can help the user, in this case the customer, to figure out what exactly the customer is dealing with. Like if you're purchasing books, you don't want to see the IDs of the books because that doesn't explain what that book represents. So more tangible information like a book title would be something ideal for picking up into this uh, drop down list box. Next is a details view, which obviously shows up the book details that we have selected. So once we choose a different book, we see that the details show up. We have added a new template field here to this details view to pick up the order quantity. Of course, we are also looking at the quantity here, and we have picked up an order quantity, which means that we can specify the number of items we need to order. So this is again a drop down list box, and the purpose of this is to select the quantity that we want to order or the number of units that we want to order for that product. There's a button called add to cart. So whenever you select a particular book, this book is added to a cart, which obviously is a grid view, but we need to manipulate data table objects, and the data row objects will be used to create new rows in this table. And that will be binded up as a source to this grid view to display the selection of the books that you have selected. This also contains uh, it contains a functionality of where you can also remove certain books from the table, from this data table that we have created. So we can also delete items if we want to. So if we want to remove this item from here, as you can see, we will be able to, like we have added this book twice, so obviously we will be removing one item from here. So once you do that, you can remove the items from the list, and you can see that your total has been recalculated, and it displays the updated total. So these are some of the functionality. Once we click on finalize order, uh, the application shows us an order number, the new order number that has been created, and obviously it confirms with a message that order has been successful with the order value of 1680 and your order number is 52. So always put some notification messages. This can be done by using labels and giving customized a string message to be displayed with the label which has been customized for the customer. So the customer have an idea what exactly is being processed on this table. So with that functionality, let's get on to what we have implemented and how we have implemented it. So for that purpose, we will be looking at obviously the extension of the same functionality that we have covered up earlier. What we did earlier was we created a private folder for the customer. This is called cust private. We of course added a web config file with the authorization tag where deny users is equal to this question mark in double quotes. That's the syntax to control the access. And after that, we have added a new private page here known as shopping cart.aspx. So if you look at this private page, the layout I have already shown you in the in the running demonstration of this application. Here what we have is we have a label that displays date. We have a customer ID, which is again a label, and it's been marked in red because we can distinguish this. And this obviously label picks up the value from this grid view. Now this grid view simply is connected to this customer data source, and this customer data source basically consists of a specific query which obviously selects the details. If you're going to look at there, you can see that it selects uh, the customer details, and it has a parameter there. The parameter is customer email. So we will use this cust email parameter that we have created here to initialize and to identify the customer who's logged in. So we will again use the same property, which is your identity dot name property, to pick up the email ID of the customer. So once we have the email ID of the customer, obviously we will filter this query based on the email ID, and we will see that the grid view that we have associated this particular data source, it's called customer ds2, will display the details of a particular customer who's logged in. So that's basically the purpose of it. After that, we will be, I think, we will initialize one more, we will initialize these variables here. So if you look at the source code of page load property of this uh, CS file of this shopping cart, we will see that the page load property contains label date dot text property as date time now, and that is formatted to a short date string. So this will display the date, current date, because obviously it's now, and we are using the now property, and a short date string, and it is being associated, it is being assigned to a label called lbl underscore date. So this is going to be just for the display of date. Of course, we can use it further as well to insert the current date into our database. In my case, my database already has a default date, which is obviously the present date. It has a get date function used. So in that case, we may not have to insert the current date, and we can just do with simply uh, by inserting other values that we need to insert in our table. So if we look at our order table, as you can see here, go to the design view. So we already have order date field here, and we have used get date property to display the present date here. So we have a get date property as a default value to basically get the date. So then we don't need to insert it from the application side of it. So getting back to the same this thing, we also have uh, picked up the parameters for the customer data source, SQL data source called cust ds2. This is your customer data source, and we have selected the parameter as customer email, and the default value is equal to user identity name toString. So this gives us the value of the current logged in user identity, which obviously is the email ID of the customer that we have, the customer that has logged in. And this obviously will be then given as a source data binding to the grid view that we have created. So this will filter out all the customer details and only show the customer that has logged in. Next thing, we added a label for cust ID, customer ID, and we have also initialized this by picking up the first row, obviously that is row 0, and the first value of the row 0, which means the first cell value, which is again cell 0, and initializing that to the customer ID label. So we can display the customer label ID label as well, and we will be using it for other insertions into our order table mainly. The next important thing that we are doing here is, and that is very critical, is that we will be uh, using the if not post back, and is post back methods. So these two methods will be used. So if as I explained in the previous session, that is not post back basically would be useful, will basically be used to initialize our shopping cart using a session variable that we have created known as cart. So normally when a page is loaded, uh, obviously we have done these initializations right in the beginning. After that, when the especially the session variable does need or it gets refreshed whenever the page status changes. So if you're going to make any selection, so that obviously will reset the session variable for us. To prevent that, we will be using uh, this particular flag here. If not is post back, which means your page is not posting back any event messaging. It is not posting anything. That means the page has been loaded for the first time. So if the page has been just loaded, obviously is not post back will be true, and the we are creating a variable called we will be initializing an object of uh, uh, a cart basically, and we call this as my cart. Now there's a method called make cart which we have created down there, that obviously will consist of getting all the initializations of the cart. So we will try and decode that as well. Uh, this is a method right on the top here. Public static data table. So we are creating an object of data table. So this data table will help us to hold all the selected values of the items of the products that we are placing an order for, and this will be capable of holding multiple products data for us. So for that purpose we have created this uh, this particular object here for the data table, and we are defining this particular method as make cart. So this make cart method will take the parameter as data table my cart. Once we have given the data table object parameters to it, it will add different columns. So my cart columns dot add, and it will add individual columns to it. So we are using the same field titles or the field IDs that we have in our table, although they can be different as well. So my cart dot columns dot add, and that obviously we are trying to create a 2D structure here with the data table and with the help of this method called makeCart. And here our 2D structure will be a tabular structure that will have the column names as book ID, book title, price, quantity, and then a subtotal. Subtotal will be obtained by multiplying the price and the quantity together. And these columns will constitute our data table. Finally, it will return the object my cart, and this will be used, as a source for the grid view that we have created here. So our uh, cart, obviously, that we will be creating, which is going to be displayed by this grid view. This grid view obviously will contain all the items that we have selected by clicking add to cart button. So with this kind of functionality, we will be further looking at other codes that we have here in the shopping cart.cs file. So on the page load itself, we have flagged it as if not is post back, then we are initializing my cart with the new, with the method called make cart and passing on the object variable here as a parameter to this method my cart. This will create the data table for us, and obviously uh, you know, the session cart. Basically, we have created a session variable called cart. Now, this session variable cart itself is of my cart type. Now, please keep that in mind that your my cart itself is a complex data type, which means it is a data type which will contain a data table object, which will have multiple, fields like multiple columns as well as multiple rows. So that uh, cart object itself, a session object that we are creating, will also contain, a complex data type with a 2D structure which consists of columns and rows, and that obviously will contain the attributes of the products as well as, different items that you are purchasing. So we're going to keep that in mind. If it is post pack, which means uh, we are not initializing it for the first time, so we're going to create object variable only for the first time. For the second time, whenever we want to process this page, we don't need to reset or recreate a object variable. We will just, reinitialize or populate the same object variable that we have created. So we have created this object variable my cart will have an updated value of data table. So data table, and obviously it is being typecast as data table, and what we are having here is the session variable cart. Now just keep that in mind. The session variable cart itself will have multiple data types, values in it, in a sense that it will have multiple columns as well as multiple rows. So this data table will be now, reinitialized to the existing variable my cart. So the difference between is not post back, and is post back here is that we initialize the variable in is not post back for the first time. We create a variable and we initialize it. Here we are not creating a new variable, we are just reinitializing existing variable. Second thing that happens here obviously is that we are giving the grid view that we created, we call it as GV cart, and the data source is equal to my cart. So that my cart variable, object variable, which is a data table type of variable, will assign the columns and the rows to the grid view that we have. And then gvcart.databind will make sure that the data, or this variable, object variable, whatever it has, the value has been added to it or the value has been removed from it, any updated value will automatically be, also updated to the grid view cart by data bind property whenever we're going to use the data bind function here. So data bind method will rebind and will show updated, status of the my cart variable. So in the sense, uh, it will be easy for you to visualize what is happening in your my cart variable, because your my cart variable will exactly reflect itself in this grid view. So the value that you're going to see in the grid view will exactly be the reflection of, whatever is happening in the my cart object variable, which is a data table type of variable. All right, so the other thing that we have to figure out here is, and here in the previous session I demonstrated, uh, you know different approach towards inserting, which is a coding approach, uh, where we have added, or we have inserted our values into the object. But in this case we will be using, a data source with the parameters, as well as we will be using scope identity methods for inserting the values into the table. I will explain both of them, although I have already covered up, the coding view in detail in the last session we had face to face. So here, what is most interesting part here is, after we have created our a session variable of type cart named as cart. Obviously, the variable object variable name is my cart, but the session variable is cart. So once we have created it and we have initialized it, then we're going to see that we will have to process this variable, or this particular object, adding new rows and columns to it, and that is going to be this on click of this method here. So we have this on click of this button, sorry. So we have this button, add to cart. So one thing that we are doing here is, I'll also cover up before we go to add to cart, of course. Um in fact, let's look at this functionality first. That what we are doing here essentially is that we have also added one details view control over here, uh, and we have also added one drop down list control over here. So the drop down list control has been binded to the uh, books table, and once you create a new you know once you create a new drop down list box, we do see that the drop down list box will always be consisting of uh, let me just demonstrate that quickly to you. So once we're going to add a new drop down list here, and we'll try and configure this uh, using a data source, you're going to see that it will show the list of tables that you have added in your once you have added a connection string. So we will be picking up any SQL data source that we have already created. So we have created a books data source. Now you can see, once we create a book, we added the books data source. We'll obviously see that I think we have book details data source, I think. Okay, I'm adding a new data source here just to display the functionality to you. uh, I've added a new data source, uh, and we will just call it as books2 books2 ds, and then we will be binding this new control uh, to this new data source. So once we will be doing that, of course, in the books data source, we will be configuring it to books details. Obviously, we have added all the books details, and we will be configuring this to basically view the title itself of the book. So once we have got this, we will be binding this to the data source that we have just created, books2 data source. You can see here that the field that we want to display is basically the book title, but we will keep the data field. So select a data field for the value of the book drop down list. So the value here will be book ID. So once we select a particular book title, obviously for displaying we need book title, so it is more understandable, more descriptive for us to understand what exactly is we choosing. But on the other hand, we will be working with the data field, that is the ID, book ID. So the value that will be returned by selecting the book title is going to be the book ID. So that is something I would reiterate to you to keep in mind. So once we have done that, next thing is we have created a details view, and this details view again is banded with the data source. It's called book details data source. And what is important is that the uh, this will be using book ID again as the key data key name as book ID. So we will be selecting book ID as the key data field over here. So once we have done that, we will see that our book details will be displayed. The key field will be book ID, on which we will be filtering the data over here. What else we will be doing here is we need to do here is obviously we need to of course we can apply some auto format for having a nice display. We can put the values into a table. So we will have our book IDs and book details into all the labels and the the values displayed in a particular tabular format. I've explained that to you in the last previous session. What else we have done here is we have added a new. We went to the uh, edit templates, and in edit templates we can also basically or before even going to that, we went to the edit fields, and here we added a new field. So we added a template field here, and on clicking on add we have added a new template field. So you can see we have added a new template field. The new template field is here to display the uh, the the quantity order quantity that we are going to order for this. So once we have added a template field, in that new template field we will see that we can add a label here as order quantity, and after that we have added a drop down list box to it. So that is simply by dragging and dropping here, we can add a drop down list box to it. So that drop down list box that we have added over here, obviously you can go to the edit items, and here you can add items to it by specifying the text value into this new list box. So similarly you can add all the items to it. So we can keep on adding the items to the list as list items. And once we have done that, you will see that the text box will contain these list items, when we use it. The other important thing is we need to give a name to this text box, sorry, this drop down list box. So the name that we have given to this one, and obviously this was just for the display purpose. We are using this one here. Uh, and in order to even view the properties for this drop down list box, you have to click on edit templates. So once you click on edit templates, then you will be able to select this particular drop down list box, uh, and after that you will be able to access the properties of this list box. So what we have done is we have simply given the name as DDL quantity, drop down list quantity, as a ID to this list box, to this drop down list box. So once we have done that, we will be using this name for the reference of this drop down list box that we have in order to pick up the quantity that we need. So what we need now basically is we would be when we go to our shopping cart dot cs file, we will see that we have the details that we basically need for this. And just look at this this particular event here, add to cart event. So what we have done, we simply have added one extra template field to this details view. In that template field we have added one drop down list box, The name of this drop down list box has been DDL quantity. After that, we can choose to end template editing, which obviously will show you the view and will show that this new field has been added, which is your DDL quantity. I did explain to you that in order to change any properties, even to give a ID name, name to this or a ID name to this, you have to go to the edit template option, and then only you will be able to see the properties of this. So once this has been done, next obviously we've got a button here called add to cart, and on the uh, uh, event handling of this button, what we have done is we have created a data row object. We obviously had created a data table object called my cart. Here we did that, and I explained to you that we had two situations. One is not post back. Now this is the situation when the page is loaded for the first time, and is post back is basically the situation when the page has been an event has occurred on the page. That means probably you have selected a drop down list box or you have clicked a button. So that two situations obviously have to be handled separately. First one means that you're going to create a new variable of a session variable of type cart, known as cart here, of the type my cart, which is obviously a data table. And in the second option, we have initialized this, we have assigned rather the value of the cart session variable to this my cart object. And obviously we have typecasted that as a data table. And we have assigned the value to our grid view. So the grid view is called the GV cart, and the data source property of that is been initialized or assigned and the value of my cart variable, which is obviously a session variable. So that gives you the data table structure. But here what we are doing, we are adding on the click of this, the button name there is called button add to cart underscore click event. That is what we are programming here. So button add to cart will obviously be, executing this click event with these codes that we have written over here, which means that first we are creating a data row object and we call it as cart row. And we're going to obviously do by saying my cart.new row. So a new row will be initialized as a data row object into this my cart. What we are doing in this new row, we are adding some fields into this or some values into this row. Obviously, these are the fields that we have already created. The field name has to be consistent of your data table field names that you have or column names that you have there. So, because when we created the data table, imagine that we have created the columns as book ID, book title, price, quantity, and subtotal. So this is the column names, and the row obviously will have the column names there as the same. So cart row, book ID, obviously this is the labeler of the first row, will have value from the details view. Now I explained to you that details view first row, obviously, and cell number one, rather, which is cell number two in your view, because the cell zero contains only the labels. The values are contained in cell one. So cell one obviously is this cell here, which is where your data will appear. Obviously, cell zero will only contain the labels of the product that you have. Here we have books table that is associated with it. So that is why now you will be able to see that cells one.text property will be the book ID. Similarly, we are picking up the book title and we are picking up the price from different rows. So details view, row 7 has your price, and this is important here. We are creating a drop down list box object called DDL to pick up the initialized or the selected values dynamically from this drop down list box that we have just added to this details view. We added that as a new template field, and then we obviously have to pick up the value from there. So this is important because drop down list box variable name is DDL. It's a drop down list box, so it is being typecasted here. And the details view find control property file control method will give you the object reference for this drop down list box. We call this drop down list box, if you remember, DDL quantity. So this was the name that was given to this drop down list box, where we will choose the number of products we are buying or the number of units we are buying, and it will be known as DDL quantity. So this is the method find control which we are using to pick up the value. Once we have the value picked up or the object has been picked up in our object name DDL, then we will you be using DDL.selected value. So DDL.selected value will contain the selection, and the selection obviously, as I said, will be whatever item you have selected, and that will become the cart row quantity for you. So quantity will be picked up. So we have already picked up book ID, title, price, and quantity. Now we have one one field here which has been added to this. This is called subtotal. Now this field has been added to it, uh, and I'm sure this was also added when you were creating your data table known as my cart. And subtotal, as you can see, is also here. So we have 5 fields. The same name will be used here. So the cart row subtotal will be having a total, whatever the subtotal that is going to be there. So to get the subtotal, what you have to do, you have to probably multiply the price by the quantity. So we created a, a variable type double here called sub, uh, and by using convert.toDouble, because we have to convert the value into double to get a product of this, we are picking up the details view one. This is our details view name dot row 7. Row 7 contains the price. Cell 1 text property, multiply that by, and obviously this has been converted to double first, otherwise you won't be able to get a product of it, and then multiply that by again by a drop down list selected value. So this is the selected value, which is the quantity that we are selecting. So the name of the drop down list box object which was dynamically created was DDL. So DDL dot selected value will be converted into integer and will be multiplied by the value of the details view 7th row, which consists the price value. So price comes here from the details view 1, while the quantity comes from the selection of the drop down list box that we added as a new template field into the details view. Next, what we are doing here is we are obviously adding the subtotal by obviously converting the sub into a particular 2 decimal string. You can use currency here as well, uh, unless your currency values have not been set to has not been set to like US or any other one. Uh, you will see the local notation of the currency there. If it is to US, you'll see a dollar sign there. The best part is to keep it neutral. Well, I would rather suggest that you keep it simply as a number. Even the number format will give us a trouble, and I explained in the previous session that if you have a setting of a number format into local South African format, then it will be always showing you a comma. So the comma is going to be a problem for you whenever you're going to do an insertion. For display, it's okay, but you have to make sure that when you pick up this value, you get rid of any commas into your figures that you have being represented as a total or a subtotal. So we will consider that into our our minds when we are dealing with insertion, especially for display. This format does look very presentable, very nice, because it gives you the comma whenever you have values running into thousands. So if, say for example, the subtotal comes out to be 2500 something, you will see 2 comma 500 written there, which obviously is more readable. So you can obviously use the format string.format property for this, and just keep a number format with decimal places too. N2 means that you're going to have two decimal places. So this will take care of display of the subtotal into a specific number of decimal places format. Here we are selecting two. Next, obviously, we say mycart.rows.add. So mycart object, which is our data table object, will have a new row added to it, mycart.row.add, and we're going to add cart row as a new object to it. So that has been done, and after that we will reinitialize the the grid view, which is called GV cart, and the data source will be reassigned as my cart. So that will ensure that whenever you have added a new row or you have even removed any row, your grid view gets refreshed, it gets updated, with the current state of number of products that you have uh, in your cart, and that obviously is reflected by the my cart variable. So that is what we have reinitialized, and gvcart.databind will ensure that the new values are bound and they are also displayed into the grid view. The session.cart will also needs to be updated because we have added a new row. Even if we remove, we have to do the same thing again. So session.cart is equal to my cart, which means we have reinitialized the session variable. It will also be updated. Finally, we need to pick up the total of this cart. So for that, we have created a label called LBL total, and we are initializing the calculation of the total to this variable LBL total. Now, what is happening here in LBL total? Obviously, we are using a method called getCartTotal, and obviously it takes my cart as a parameter. And what is happening in getCartTotal is this method that you can see right here below. It's protected decimal. The return type of this method is decimal because it will return a sum of all the subtotals that we had, all the items that we have selected in our in our orders uh, as order line items. And here the get cart total method takes data table cart as a parameter, as an argument, and after that, here in this, we create a variable of decimal type called sum, initialize that by 0, and we are obviously considering here if statement to ensure that we don't have an empty cart, because empty cart will basically result into an error. So if the cart rows count is greater than 0, then only you will run a for loop. The for loop obviously is executing where int I is equal to 0. The value of I is less than cart.rows.count. Of course, since we have uh, less than sign, and obviously the loop is being initialized from 0, so that means we'll have the index 0 as the first value, first row. Obviously I is less than 0, row count will give us running this loop from 0 to 1 less than the row count that we have. So that is why we don't need to put a equal to sign here. We just have to leave it with less than, otherwise it will again jump over the array index. So we'll get a exception, which is normally common as array out of bound exception if we run it with equal to sign. Obviously, that is what we have to avoid because it is running from 0. So it will run one less to the count of the value of the rows and I++. So you know how the loop works. And then what we are doing here is we are saying we're creating a string amount is equal to in this loop we are saying cart.rows and with I as the index value, which will execute from 0 and obviously to the number of rows that we have, one less of the row count actually. And the subtotal, this is what the column name is. So we will be picking up the subtotal column of the rows and converting that to string, and we will be assigning that as amount obviously here we have taken string as amount just to pick up the value from this cart object. Remember, our session object normally deals with string values. It doesn't store any int or decimal data type directly. It may appear as obviously as a decimal number, but it is stored in a string format. So you always have to be careful about converting type conversions. So that is why once we have got this amount, to add it to the sum variable and rather to append the value, which means that we are using a increment assignment operator. We have added decimal dot parse obviously into it, because the string value has to be converted to a decimal value and then added to sum. So this runs in a for loop for as many rows as we have, starting from 0 to the row count minus 1. Obviously that is automatically here because we are using the less than parameter, so it will only run to the one value less than the the last row that we have. So, and the sum will be keep on accumulating here as in this variable, and then finally we return sum. So once we return sum, obviously this get cart total will give you the output as a total. So that is exactly what we are storing in LBL total label called total, and the text value of that is initialized by get cart total, and that is what this get cart total will return back. So once we have sorted this total, then we go to the next one, uh, and the next what we have to do obviously is also we need to take care of deleting the rows from this cart. So what we are doing here is we are using we've created a method called gvcart row deleting, and this obviously will be taking care of any deletion of the method. Now in order to achieve that, we have to again go to the cart design, and here in this data grid view we have to go to edit columns, and here we have to add a we have to add a new uh, I think it's called a template field. When you're going to click on add, uh, you will obviously I think where is it oh no, sorry, we have to add a command field. Getting confused here. So we have to add a command field. So what we go to the command field, and in the command field we have different command fields as edit, update, cancel, select, delete. So we have to select the delete and we have to click on add. So that obviously will add the delete field. So once you do that, of course, you will see in your grid view, you will see the delete label coming up here to the grid view. So now your grid view has a delete label. Next thing what we need to do is uh, we need to create a delete method to handle the deletion. So for that, we will go to the our CS file, and we will create a gvcart underscore row deleting method. This method will again take the arguments like object sender, comma, uh, grid view delete event args. You have to type this down, otherwise it won't come from the IntelliSense menu. This you have to enter as a parameter here. The grid view delete event argument, object name is E. So here you have to use e.row index. So that means that will give you the selected row index whenever you click on the delete, that link or that command button that you have created. So that obviously will execute this, and the coding behind it is my cart dot rows dot remove at. So imagine, obviously remember that this my cart is your session object that you have created, or rather it's a data table object that has been stored in the session by the name of cart. So my cart dot rows, this is your data table dot rows remove at, and then you're removing at e.row index. That means the whatever current row index has been selected, that command button delete has been clicked, e.row index will be the parameter that is stored, and you are removing the rows from that. So that is basically you are removing the index value of the rows that has been clicked by selecting the delete option in the command, that command link that you have there, which is your, you refer to it as a command object, as I explained to you earlier. So this will be your, this particular, command link that you have over here. So, uh, and we got it by clicking on, command field and adding the delete as a command field to it. So once we have added delete as a command field, the other thing, obviously, we have to do is the coding of the method of, uh, when this is clicked here, and the coding of the method will be uh, this method here, gvcart underscore row deleting, will be used here. Now, what has to be done is that once we select this, we go to the events tab here. In events tab, in row deleting property, once you click there, you will see that this method will be showing up now. So once you have created a method, give grid view cart, that is your gv cart underscore row deleting, this method gets associated with the event of delete event of this cart that we have. And in the row deleting property, you will see this method will be showing up as a source. So you need to select that. If you don't select it, obviously your delete command will not work, and it will not remove any of the rows. So this is an important step. So once you have done this, we're going to obviously go to the next step, which obviously is more about inserting our orders. Now here we have to uh, be I have demonstrated earlier that you can use a different approach for inserting the values into this table. Uh, what we are doing here basically is that first I demonstrated another coding method to you uh, for insertion, and that obviously this is the method that we have. We created two of them rather. There's a slight improvement in the code over here. Uh, this was the code that I first created, and this code is for the insert order. So this is a method called order insert one, which was demonstrated earlier, which obviously is showing that you create a SQL connection object, you give your query string, over here, your details are given here, and after that you open the connection object. And what was interesting, if you remember, was the method that was used here to pick up the last order number. So what we need is basically, uh, once we have made an insertion, and obviously our order table here has a order number as the primary key, which is auto increment. So the order number as a primary key is auto increment, and as you can see here, uh, the property of identity specification obviously has been made yes. Is identity is yes. Identity increment obviously is 1. That means your uh, order number will start from 1 and will be incremented by identity seed as 1. So whenever you are obviously inserting a new order, automatically your order number will be auto created. I did mention to you that I have also made order date also as a default get date field. So you can see the default value has been given as a get date method, which will automatically give you the current date. and it will be inserted into the table. So you don't need to insert the current date, because as you're going to insert the order, automatically the current date will be the order date. So this has been taken care of. Obviously, now we are more concerned about inserting an order number, and then after that we should be able to pick up this order number. So in order to do that, I explained a couple of techniques to you. First, we use the count. We can take a count of the order number. Now, the problem with that is if you have done some deletion of records, which normally we land up doing, because when we are testing the application, we get some incorrect data in our table. When we are obviously trying to debug our application, we'll do some insertions, which obviously will create some orders or some data that will probably be incorrect. So if you delete that data, obviously, which I did also, then the count will always be differing, and it will not serve the purpose that we are, for the purpose for which we are using it. So another method that comes to your rescue is known as the max method. So obviously in your SQL command, we are trying to pick up the last order number. So after the insertion, you obviously can pick up the last order number, or you can even have one last order number, and then you can increment that order number by one. So what I'm doing here is I'm picking up the last order number by saying select max order number from table order with the con connection object as per argument, and the SQL command object is cmd. Cmd.command type is text, and we are executing this. So what we are doing is cmd dot, we are using execute scalar. Execute scalar, as I explained earlier also, gives you the first value, in fact, of the your SQL query that has returned the values. So SQL execute scalar will give you only one single value. If it has multiple output, still it will only give you the single output. So normally if you return anything which is in this case obviously a single value we need, and that single value obviously is the last order number that we had. So we need to we need to use execute scalar, because that will only return one value to us. This value has to be converted into integer, and this obviously has been given up here as rows. Now we can obviously change this. Obviously I probably was get I got probably carried away with this row count, but this can definitely have a different name. You can obviously give a different name to it, which obviously can be used in order to further understand what are we trying to get here. So this variable here can be referred to as order ID. Obviously, I think I have to change that right on the top as well where I had it. So we have a variable called order ID as int. I'm just differentiating it from the order number because that is our name of the table variable, but you can also keep it the same, because the way you find it comfortable, you can keep it the same as well. So here we have uh, order ID, uh, and obviously we are saying order ID plus plus. So we are incrementing the order ID by 1, and then we are assigning this to the order number label. Obviously this a label will display our order number, and that's basically the order ID in this case. So there's no conflict here. I think it's clear that we are trying to get the value of the last order number, increment that order number by 1, and then we will be, obviously this is going to be our new order number that we have. Now here we have created an insert order query. We are inserting into table order, and we are only inserting two values. So whenever you insert discrete values, you have to put that into brackets. The column names or the field name of your table has to be in the brackets. So we have put order amount and customer ID. Now, we for the convenience, we also picked up the customer ID in a label. So we are inserting the values, and it is important that you learn to construct this query string with a concatenation operators, your plus sign here in this case. Be careful about the quotes. So probably you would start by just creating a query string first, and then after that uh, adding the plus signs and then inserting the variable values that you are going to insert in between. So be careful about that. I explained the better technique of you to just create a query string first, execute one test string, and after that you would by just putting up some values into it, making sure that the query runs successfully for you, and after that changing those values or replacing those values with plus signs on the both edges, on the both ends, and then putting up the either some control variable names or the variable names itself, whatever you find, whatever you have and you find it convenient. So we have them in the label as a label total, so lbl total.txt or text property, and obviously we have, this is our the total of our invoice value or total of our order value that we have. And then we have also the customer ID. So remember, this table, order table, had 4 fields, but the order number is a self-generated auto increment ID, and second is the order date, which is again given as a default date. Get date function can be used for that. So here, that is why we are only inserting 2 fields: order to, the total, which comes from label total, and the label cust ID that we are putting up here, customer ID. So these two values, once they are inserted, then we can execute this SQL command cmd2. This is the object, new SQL command, and then we are inserting this insert order query with the argument of connection object, and executing this as a text command type as text. And it is important to know that we are executing this as known query. Whenever you make any insert or update, you have to execute your command as known query. Whenever you have a select statement, then obviously you will execute that as query. So that is the difference in an insert and update command from a normal select command. So once you have done that, and that is the reason why here we could have executed this as execute query, but since we only wanted one value, we wanted to land it up with one value that we can use in an order ID, to initialize our order ID variable. That is why we executed that as a scalar. But if you want multiple values, then you will obviously use execute query, and in this case you will use execute known query. So these are few differences just to consider. This is one approach. The other approach I wanted to explain, and I demonstrated this approach obviously in the previous session as well. And of course, this order insert one was used to insert the values, and you can see, you would definitely see that it was part of our previous demonstration. So we have order insert one, and we obviously use that to achieve our goal of getting the last order, incrementing the last order by one, and then inserting the order details into order table, and also confirming that our order number is so and so. Obviously we picked up the last one and incremented that by one, and that becomes a new order number. The other method that I will be demonstrating right now uses scope identity method, and this is quite interesting because this is more about configuring your parameters and using this. So you can choose whichever method you are comfortable with. So let's look at this scope identity method also. So here I have posted one tutorial onto the Learn site. That tutorial itself is known as shopping cart with receipt. You will see that on Westville site. Please go through that for the steps if you if you want to refer to like a proper slideshow, like a proper slides, or rather documentation of all the steps that are being used. But it is important to kind of explain and also demonstrate stepwise process there. Unless you listen to this tutorial, you may get a little confused about what exactly the tutorial is addressing. So that is the intention, and for that we have created a new method called order insert to, which uses the different scope identity method, which I'm going to explain just now. So let's look at order insert to. So in order insert to, what we have done here is uh, it will, of course, be based on the steps that I referred to in that tutorial. The PDF of that is available as shopping cart with receipt, under my ASP section. Please refer to that. What we are doing here is in this method, obviously, we are, obviously in this order insert to, I have kind of just, uh, you know, given a bit of a comment here that we are using our order data source and a parameter property of order amount, to insert values into it. So what we are basically doing, we are we have already configured our, so we don't need this method. In fact, what we have put up here, I don't really need it. This was just to test that this is working. uh, so I'm just putting a comment that needs your SQL data source configuration. So this configuration is important. What configuration do we need here? Of course, in our data source order number, we need to basically follow a few steps, as I mentioned to you. These steps have been mentioned in that PDF. What are we doing basically here is interesting to learn that we are first creating, we are configuring our order, our SQL data source with the parameters that we want. So the parameters that we want in this will be basically configured in that way. I'm just referring to this uh, order data source. Let's look at this data source, what we have done here. In this data source, of course, once you have selected the values, you will obviously click on selection of what we have done. Obviously we have done the selection. Once we have done this, I'm not changing anything, because that will ask me to reconfigure the data source. What I'm doing is, obviously, the simple is we are having select all from table order. That is a standard SQL statement that comes up here. What is interesting is that once you click on the insert property here of this data source. So you are here, you're going to select the data source. Once you click on the insert property, just go to the property here, and in this property we're going to look at the insert property here. As you can see, uh, just like you have the query here, select query, you're going to look for insert query. So in that property, obviously, we're going to click on insert query property. When you're going to click on insert query property, this is where you will be putting up your insert command. So you will be using the command insert into table order. And here what you are inserting two values, order amount. These have to be in the brackets. When you use the query builder, you will see that automatically it kind of gives you the square brackets around the names, and then don't get confused by that. In any way, you are putting up your field names here in round braces. Obviously, this has to be into round brackets, and these are order amount and the customer ID. So these are the two fields I'm putting up values into it. They are separated by a comma, and the values are here in again round brackets. And what we are putting up here is two parameters. One is order amount, another is at the rate order ID. So these two parameters, obviously the parameter name carries an at the rate sign in front of preceding them, so you have to use at the rate signs. And after that, what we have done is you have also added another query here, select order number. Obviously the parameter order number is equal to scope identity. Now this is important, and as I said, this command I'm referring to this tutorial that I have already posted on Moodle on Learn site, and this is what you have to refer to when you are using this. So once you have this scope identity, select scope identity over here. Obviously, when you click on refresh parameters, you will see that your parameters will come here automatically, or you can obviously add parameters as well. So the parameter order number has been, binded or added to control known as a label total. So here you are binding the label total to the order amount, which is a parameter in this query as order amount. Customer ID. Now you are binding this to the label customer. So that is why it is convenient sometimes to create those labels, because now it's easy to bind them to these objects, and very difficult. In fact, if you have them in a grid directly, you will be finding it difficult to pick up the value from the grid. It won't support if you try to give a direct value of the grid, like your your grid name, your grid view name, and then your row number, and then your cell number as a as a reference. It will be difficult, and it rather gives an error whenever you want to try do that. I tried it, in fact. So better to use a label or some variables that you want to basically use. So we have binded this to the the parameter source is control again, and the control ID is the label cust ID. So cust ID comes up here. Now when you look at the order number, obviously this is a variable order number which has not been binded to anything. This order number will obviously get the this parameter will get the value from the scope identity method. So the scope identity method will return the last key field value to you. Obviously the key field in order table is order number. So it will give you the order number, and that is why you have created a parameter called order number. Obviously the name can be different, but you rather can keep it the same if you like. So this is not bound to anybody because it will dynamically get the values, and I'll tell you where exactly it is picking up the value from. So these are the configurations that we have done, and after you have done this, uh, we haven't changed anything so far into this. So we're going to again go back to our our CS file, and in that CS file what we have done is we have created a new method called protected void order inserted. Now this is obviously the name given to the method is order underscore inserted, and again we will supply the parameters as object sender and SQL data source status argument, status event argument as E. Similarly, like we created for the deleted one. Remember, we created one for the deletion also. So we created one method for the deletion also, like row deleting. So grid view cart row deleting, and we actually had this method created for the deletion of the row. Similarly, we have just created this method for insertion as well. So this is called order inserted. and here this object e, SQL data source status event arguments e is being used. E dot command. Now, what is interesting that e dot command dot parameters. This is where your scope identity will return the last order number to you. So you have to capture that here. So for that we have to have order inserted method, which obviously will only return the value, and this can be captured by this object over here. So order inserted method will be used. This method will be, I'll tell you when this method will be executed. This will basically return the scope identity, value. In a sense, it will return the last value of the inserted order number to you, and that will go into the label order number text property for you to be displayed out there. So once, okay, now what else we have done here is the same order inserted has been also used for inserting multiple rows into the uh, order line table. Now, what we had done earlier in the coding view, we created a separate method called order line for the order line insertion. That method was created, as order line insert, as you can see right here. So we created a method called order line insert, and that is through the coding view when we use the coding view approach. So we created the order line insert, and here we obviously created a connection object, and we used a for loop. So we ran the for loop till the grid view cart dot rows dot count is there, and we ran our insert query. We created a insert query type string, which means we are inserting into order line table here. And in order line table, what we are inserting values like order number. We are inserting book ID. Obviously, this is we are using the my cart object, and we are using the rows, obviously index number here. So my cart dot rows I, obviously it will start from the first row, which is 0, book ID, and then we are inserting the price. So our order line table basically is consisting of feeds like order number, book ID, price, and units. So for that purpose, we have constructed our insert query string into the order line table. So insert into order line values, order number, and the book ID. Obviously, we are picking up this value from the my cart object, data table object that we have created, and obviously the price, and we have also used the quantity. So this is our coding method where we have constructed the query string, and obviously we executed that SQL command object scmd to insert order line query with the connection object as parameter, and then command type as text, and then we have executed that as a non-query. So execute non-query method we have used for this command. So this was our first method, coding method, and I just want to compare and contrast this with the new method that we are using here. So the new method obviously will be, obviously the logic is, or the functionality is still the same, but obviously the coding and the code is going to be different. So we are again running a for loop, and now we are basically using the order line data source, because there we use the command, we use the coding directly, so we were not dealing with SQL data object. Here we have to obviously create a SQL data source. The SQL data source is order line data source. This order line data source is simply created just like we created any other data source, SQL data source. And in configure, what we have simply done was we have obviously configured it by, by selecting, a particular table name, and then, we have, or select state. We have basically obviously, since we went through the default way where you have, when you create a new data source, you simply have to, uh, you know, uh, implement, whatever you want to do with that data source. So you simply would go with, I'm just trying to demonstrate by adding a new data source here, uh, SQL data source. Just like just to demonstrate this, configure data source, and after that, selecting the data source and click on advanced. So in advanced, you would select, generate, insert, update, and delete statements. You can also use optimistic concurrency control. And once you do that, you will see that this data source, whatever this data source is based on, if like I'm basing it, I'm basically connecting it with the order line in this example, it will automatically give me a particular sort of an output. And obviously, I think I forgot to create this SQL data source. Of course, would need also to configure uh, various parameters. So here we have obviously done that. We have added this, but in where clause, you will be obviously adding the parameters that we are trying to add here. So this data source obviously will have book ID. Uh, you know we are adding this as a parameter. We don't need any. We can add this with the source, of course. We can obviously select a control. So we can do that. So this obviously is book ID. Book ID, if we are trying to add that with the control, we can do that. But of course, we want to provide these parameters, insert parameters rather, uh, through the coding. So you can simply select that as none. uh, without selecting any particular source, you can simply select as none and add these values to it. So book ID is equal to book ID, order number uh, is going to be, source is going to be none, and you can simply say order number is going to be order number. So you can simply add all these parameters. All we need is we need to create these parameters, and then price again to none, and we can add all these parameters. So once we have added all the parameters, this is just I'm repeating this just to demonstrate that. So then we will be using, once we have done this to this data source, we will be simply using the code here. Sorry, where is my code? We will be using our, you know, in a CS file, we will be using these parameters in order to insert the values. So once we have created the parameters, obviously in this data source, you will again go to the order line data source and click on insert query option here. And in the insert query option, you will see that you will automatically get these parameters as insert into order line values. And if you see they are not in the same order, you must make sure that they are in the correct order. So you have to be aware of the order. So the order is order number, book ID, price, and units. So make sure you put them in the right order. Insert into order line values, order number, book ID, price, and units. So once you have this insert query over here, next thing we will obviously, what you have to do is you have to uh, use this method here, order line ds insert parameters, order number, and default value is equal to, and now assign the values manually. This can also be done by obviously picking up these values into some variables or some controls, and then using them as as control values to these parameters. But this is rather a more convenient way. Otherwise, you have to create multiple labels that obviously will be quite not presentable for your system in terms of displaying that as well. Or you can use session variables as well for the same purpose. So this is one approach. There are multiple approach of doing the same thing. So what we have done here is we have assigned all the parameters, insert parameters, and we have given this label or label order number to it. Remember, this label order number gets its value from uh, this label order number gets its value from scope identity method. So that is why on order inserted, we have said, the object name here is e dot command dot parameters. Parameter name is order number, and this order number gets its value from scope identity. Just this method that I explained to you. Uh, this method over here. So obviously, what we are using is select parameter name is equal to scope identity. Or if I want to show you that here, what we used in the order table once again is that we have used on the order table we have used in the insert query we have used this insert into table name. Two fields we are inserting, so we have to mention the column names here and the values as parameters order amount and cust id, and then we are also using the select at the rate order number, which is the parameter here, as scope identity. So this will return the last order number that we have inserted as a key field. That obviously is auto generated in the order table. So this scope identity method will return this value, and that is why we are getting this value into this uh, here. So e dot, so on order inserted, on the insertion of order, as you can see, when this SQL data source order, the name of the SQL data source is order ds in this case, will actually execute and will execute an insert command. So on order inserted, this method will be initiated. This method will be triggered, and this method will return this e dot command dot parameters order number parameter value, and this value will be the last order number, and that will be assigned to our order number dot text. So whichever method you prefer, I demonstrated two different methods. One obviously was the coding method where uh, we were using the uh, we were using the the method that we just created. In fact, I would rather I moved it down here. Yeah, over here. I actually moved it to another method called insert one. Order insert one. The other one I'm referring to as order insert two. Just to differentiate between these two functionalities, that we are using two different approaches. So in order insert one, what we obviously did was we used the max method, select max from order number, and then we obviously incremented that order number to get our the present order number that we are dealing with. So this is one method. As I said, the other method is this one here, order insert two, where we are using this simply we are triggering a insert operation in order insert 2. So with order data source, SQL data source, we are using the insert operation, and on order inserted, what we are triggering is we are obviously picking up the e dot command parameters and order number, and that is being returned by the scope identity, and that is obviously being assigned to the label order number. So you can see that is two different methods. Whichever you find comfortable, you can deal with that. So here on insert, uh, this order inserted method will be triggered, and this will obviously will insert the values into it. The other thing, we are also using it, we are using the same order inserted method also to insert values into order line. So this code is same code that we have already executed earlier, but this time that code was executed through SQL queries, insert queries, as I demonstrated here, insert queries with you. So where we used the insert queries into adding the values to it. So insert into order line values, and obviously we are inserting the values through these control variables and specifying them into our query string. So we use that method, and we call it as order line insert, and we obviously called it up, and that does the job for us. Of course, we have to create a SQL connection, and after that, using the for loop, we are executing to insert multiple items into our order line table. Same thing is being achieved by this method over here, order inserted. So order inserted, but this is using the uh, SQL data source, which is being named as order line data source. So order line data source dot insert parameter, and order number is going to be obviously the label order number that we have got the updated one rather. We already have the last inserted order number, and that is why we have it here. So the last order number gets picked up whenever an insert statement happens. Scope identity function returns the last order number to us. So this order number will be inserted into order line as well, because the order line will have a reference to it. So order number will be inserted. Then book ID will be inserted into order line table. Price will be inserted, and units number of quantity, or you can call it as referred to as quantity, will be inserted into order line table. So we have got these four values, and then we run order line data source dot insert. Now, what is important here to remember, that if you are using this order inserted, you created this order inserted table, sorry, this method here, which obviously will trigger an insertion operation whenever you use uh, order data source dot insert method. So here we initiated the insert method. The insert method will call on order inserted, and then this command will execute. So for that, you need to obviously mention in your order data source, and in order data source, go to the event. After selecting order data source, you have to go to the events list, and in the events list, you'll see inserted property. In inserted property, once you have created that method order inserted, you will see that that method will be available as an argument, as a value argument here, and you need to select that. So whenever an insert operation will be executed on order ds, this is our SQL data source named as order ds. Whenever insert method will be triggered, it will trigger order inserted, and order inserted will eventually execute this code, where the because we specified the scope identity method there, it will pick up the order number, last order number into it, and after that, using a for loop, it will do the insert operation for all the items that we have bought. Obviously these items are in your cart. So your my cart object, which obviously is a data table object, which contains multiple rows and columns, it will insert these values using insert parameters into your order line table using order line data source, because this data source is bound with order line table. So that is why your order line table will have all the orders inserted, order number, book ID, price, and units. So that is exactly what we have done here. So obviously the insert parameters are obviously the field names of the order line table, whereas the values being inserted are, this one is coming from the order number label, because we already assigned that value to order label through scope identity method, and others obviously are coming from the my cart data table object that we have created. And finally we have order line data source dot insert. So once this is there, we will insert these values into it, and this will obviously complete the insertion in both the tables. So it will first insert the order details into the order table, as I have explained earlier. So this is the order table, and the order table will get order number, order date, these two obviously coming automatically because order number is incremented, auto incremented key. Order date is a default key with the get date method. And we are only inserting the order amount and the customer ID. And these two values have been inserted, into this using the insert method, as you have seen just over here. So once this is complete, obviously the insert method, I said we are again configured our order data source, which we obviously configured to, you know, we configured order data source here, as you can see, to get the insert, the insert commands over here. You're going to see that in that tab as well. Insert into order table, order amount and customer ID. And we are picking them as parameters. And then also don't forget this select scope identity. Select the order number parameter is equal to scope identity. That will give you the last order from the table. If you don't want to use the coding method, obviously this is your configuration type method over here. So that's all we have done. Of course, there was also updation. There was a updation done. Obviously, that is also you can do in both ways. Either you can create a update query, uh, like I explained, by creating a method called update quantity, again using the same coding method of connection string, using the for loop again, running it till all the rows are present there, and then selecting the quantity from the books table where the book ID is going to be the book ID that you have selected from my cart rows, whatever the row number we are dealing with as book ID. And after we have got this, sorry, we execute the quantity as scalar again. So we again get the quantity because we only want one value, and this is the quantity of the book where the book ID is the selected book ID from the row. So obviously this runs in a for loop. It will start from the first row. The first book ID will be selected, and that obviously will give you the quantity of the first book ID. Now what we are doing is we are creating a int update quantity variable, and we are saying quantity minus, obviously this is the quantity we got from the table, and we are subtracting the quantity of the table, that is obviously our stock level in the table, subtracting that from the quantity we have just ordered, we have put up into our cart. So our cart obviously contains the quantity, whatever quantity we have bought. It will be subtracting that from there and executing a update books command. So we'll be executing, we created a update quantity query where we have said update books set quantity is equal to whatever updated quantity we got from this expression of quantity minus the ordered quantity that we just had. So once we have done this, obviously updated quantity, and we will be updating the table books here. In this case, we are setting up the quantity is equal to update quantity. So this is our updation where the book ID is equal to my cart rows, whatever the row number is, and the book ID of that particular row. It contains the particular book ID of that particular book details. And then you're going to execute this command. This will also be executed as non-query, execute non-query command. Right? So command dot execute non-query will actually do the insertion for you. But you can create a similar kind of update also, using your data source as well. So you're going to obviously create a new data source, and in that data source you will be uh, adding your update commands that you can of course do. I'm just leaving that to you to achieve. So here, once we have, obviously you're going to go to, obviously for that you will go to the, when you have selected the data source, this obviously gives you a very lengthy kind of update command, but definitely you can use that as well. You can kind of configure that command. I prefer the query method in that case, but I'll just show you what you're going to expect in a update query command. As you can see over here, if you go to update query command, you will see a very complex kind of a command here: update table order, set order date. Obviously, this is going to be oh, that's obviously with the order table. But what we are trying to do this, obviously, we are trying to do this with the books table. So the book table obviously will have the book update command, and you can obviously configure that to say, the original quantity is equal to the new quantity, and obviously you have to deal with updating the new quantity, by obviously selecting the value of the quantity and then subtracting that new value from the quantity. So I leave it that to you, but yes, definitely in the update command you will either you can write a custom command here as well, for your books table. So I will, or you can simply use the coding, in update query that I have demonstrated to you in your CS file, where you will simply execute the command update book set quantity is equal to updated quantity, and obviously the updated quantity will be calculated by first selecting the quantity from the books where the book ID is equal to whatever the row number book ID is, and subtracting that quantity from the order book quantity that you have. So in either way, you can execute these two things, and you can get your desired functionality being achieved. So I will suggest you to try this scope identity uh, method as well, because this would be probably important from your practical tests point of view as well. Some kind of queries can be based on that. If you are not willing to go with the coding method, then you have to use scope identity method to get the last key value to deal with this situation. So that's basically the tutorial. That is the tutorial that I wanted to just explain to you. Obviously, we have we have covered up all the concepts, and I've explained the functionality already. The interface was also explained to you earlier. And on that note, please go through this tutorial to get a better understanding of the functionality that we are using. Thank you very much, uh, and take care. Bye bye. So Deepak Kumar signing off with that message. Wish you all the best. Bye bye.